welcome everybody to the NEAR Developer Governance call. My name is Ori, and I'm a moderator from the DevGov team. And I'm excited for all of us to come together today to discuss the NEAR Light Client in TypeScript proposals and decision. Before we jump in, I just wanted to go over the agenda. So first, I will provide a little bit of context about developer governance and discuss the purpose for our call today. Next, we'll do some brief introductions. Then we'll get into the main discussion, looking at both proposals and inviting each team to quickly speak about their proposal and why they think they are the best fit. And then we'll look at the various options that we have to move forward. From there, we'll discuss the decision and next steps, and we'll open it up to Q&A if anyone joins. Also, just an FYI, we are recording this call and we'll post it, for transparency. So please just be mindful, don't say anything you don't want to be shared publicly. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. So first, let's talk about the purpose. So just to give a little bit of context about the NEAR Developer Governance. So this is an initiative that brings together people and organizations to build a decentralized developer ecosystem. And developer governance plays a role in facilitating technical projects and empowering anyone to contribute from idea to code. And we've been bucketing most of the developer community activities into these 4 buckets: ideation, implementation, review, and support. And given that there's a lot of time, effort, resources that go into these activities, developer governance has financial means to compensate for some of these activities. And we've been using the Gigs board, as you all are familiar with at this point, as our main platform for connecting NEAR ecosystem projects with funding sponsors, including the DevGov DAO. And we're still building this platform out, but anyone is welcome to share their ideas, submit solutions, get feedback or attestations from recognized experts, as well as apply for funding. And there's a blog post on our website that goes into more detail on all the ways that you can get engaged. But going into today's call, so basically, we received 2 proposals on the Gigs board for developing a TypeScript light client for NEAR. One is from Vaija, and he represents the LimeChain team, and then the other is from Austin Abel. And both of these proposals went through a rigorous review and evaluation by various working groups. And the goal for our meeting today is to discuss the feedback and, like I said, arrive at a final decision. Before we jump in, I also just want to acknowledge the effort and time that both teams invested into the proposals, as well as the reviewers. We really appreciate it and are excited to have an open discussion with all of you and ensure that we arrive at the best decision. So with that, I'd love to do introductions and get everyone's proper names. So without further ado, let's hand it over first to the LimeChain team for you to introduce yourselves.
Cool. Let me start with myself. So my name is Raichu. I'm part of the business development team here at LimeChain. The company itself is obviously a blockchain software development company. We've been doing the heavy lifting side since 2017, and Web3 is what we specialize in particular. Maybe Victor can continue.
Okay. Hey guys, my name is Victor, and me and Dimitar co-authored this LimeChain proposal.
Yeah, and we are both in architect role here, so we are kind of responsible for altering the proposal or answering the questions in the Gigs board and take it up from here from technical perspective. So yes, that's why we're here. My name is Dimitar. That's pronounce it however you like it, please. That's okay. All right.
Awesome. It's great to meet all of you, and yeah, put all your names to your faces. So very cool. All right. So next, I'd like to introduce the author of the other proposal. Hello, Austin.
Hey, yeah. So my name's Austin. I used to work at Pagoda, working on like tool stuff. And before that, I just did like protocol level development within like the Ethereum, Cosmos, and Filecoin ecosystems. And for the past couple of months, just been doing open source stuff and working primarily within like the zero knowledge space. But yeah, kind of just touching a lot of different things. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. And next, I'd like to introduce the DevGov moderators who are on this call. So, hey, Max.
Hey everyone, I'm Max. I've been an old-timer here at NEAR. Actually, I was the first employee at whatever you can call NEAR, and yeah, today I'm just helping developer ecosystem to get bootstrapped and running.
Hey folks, I'm glad you may see me around as a handle troll on different medias. I joined NEAR also like quite early on 4 years ago, and playing a huge role in the community ecosystem of developers, helping to navigate through all the unknowns. And I was also leading teams working on different tooling for the NEAR on behalf of the Pagoda teams. So now I'm helping developer governance to bootstrap together with Max and Ori. Ori.
Cool. Hello again. Yeah, I am Ori again, and I also play a DevGov moderator role, as I mentioned, and super excited to be here and to help bootstrap this together. All right, so it's time for the main topic, the actual proposals. I do want to make sure that we actually have time to discuss them. So I wanted to give a quick slide for each proposal, and maybe just really briefly, if you want to just say, introduce anything that you want to add about the proposal and why you think you're the best fit, if you want, but then we'll move into the actual discussion. So I'll hand it over back to the LimeChain team.
Cool. Someone from you guys want to get over to?
So, how to start? We are keen on what's NEAR wants to propose. Like we know that your idea is to extend this blockchain space with more people and actually to move it to be more friendly to Web2 people. And that's why we figured that the best way for us to help here is to help with the development of lifelines. Now, the whole thing or the whole 4 milestones did not appear right away. We just started with the first milestone, basically with the verification kind of step. But we kind of also think that this is something very extensible, and this is why we actually put more things and more milestones in the entire picture. We believe this is something that is going to help the community, not necessarily in this vision, not necessarily in these 4 milestones, but as a something that's extensible, and something that is growing more towards having more things happening in the browser for the NEAR protocol. So I know we estimated the first milestone so far. I know what we basically discussed mainly it. We didn't go too much into details, except for the second one, which is the local execution verification. So this is at least how I see building a great roadmap. We started with what's in front of us and we focus on it. And if we see, and depending on how we see it unrolls, we can actually change whatever steps comes after that. So yeah, the conversation here is basically the life plans. So I think it's great for us to actually define what the end goals should be, or at least what the first step should be. So I know there was a lot of discussion about milestone 3. I mean, about whether we play the PNP side of the life plan, whether we want it or not. It's a lot of discussion about the 4th step, which many people think is not feasible. I don't think we should argue about that. I mean, you're probably right. However, I do believe that aside from the paper verification part, many more things can be built on top of it after we kind of start with it. As for why LimeChain, well, our goal here is to actually bring more people to the NEAR ecosystem, and this is what we actually are proficient at. We are creating teams that are focused on different aspects of the blockchain space. We already did that with Polkadot, so Raichu can speak more about that part. Obviously, our goal here is to actually onboard more people to the ecosystem.
Yeah, sorry, our ultimate goal is essentially to we're like the core development partner of Hedera Graph for several years already. We are expanded to Polkadot's ecosystem for quite some time now, and been developing runtimes on Go right now. We are also implementing a few other proposals in the next, let's say, weeks to come. The thing is that we want to be active within the different ecosystems. NEAR is obviously one of them. And the milestones that we derived are actually more longer term oriented, so that we can be active contributors to the ecosystem, the same way we do for Polkadot, for example, Hedera, and we also have some Cosmos knowledge and projects within LimeChain that further strengthen our capabilities across the different networks. This is pretty much what we look into.
We see a lot of potential in the protocol, and that's why we try to pitch the thing.
Very cool. Yeah, well, thank you. It's really good to actually see everyone's faces, because I know we've been interacting online for quite a while, so that's very cool. So yeah, awesome. I'd like to also invite Austin to speak briefly, and then we'll get into the actual discussion and decision. So, hey, Austin again.
Hey. So yeah, I think I don't really have too much to add outside of the proposal. Like all the information should be there. I think just in summary, like obviously this is a very straightforward milestone. Like the main work is just around like API design and then like the testing and verification like framework around this. And the only thing I'll note that I guess I didn't note within the, or I might have noted within the proposal, but basically like the API design is obviously going to be favored towards being, future proofed for, the work that's being done for the, the zero knowledge light client, just so that there's, less changes in the future. But everything else is in the document. I won't, I won't repeat any of the.
Cool, awesome. Thank you, Austin. All right, so now let's move over to the actual decision discussion stage. And as you all mentioned, there were several conversations, with various working groups as well as the DevGov moderators. And based on the proposals and the discussions, it seems like there are multiple paths to consider. I think I tried outlining some of the combinations. I don't know if I covered all of them, but basically we could choose one proposal or another. We could try to choose both, or kind of create a new combination for a new option. So I'd like to invite the DevGov moderators to kind of present their review and sort of how they're leaning, and open it up for any questions that they might have. So Max or Vlad, would either one of you like to go?
Go.
Cool.
Yeah, so I want to say like that both proposals are quite high quality, and it is like a difficult decision because it has to be a binary decision. We don't want to really like sponsor both teams because it's not like we have the like money to do like 2x and 3x hedging. So I want to like speak to the strength and the specificity of each of the teams, and how the strengths play to the tasks at hand, right? So it did come across about first about the LimeChain. It did come across that LimeChain has its strength in the infrastructure building. I think the scope of the milestone one like strongly reflected it. It was like very approached as an infrastructure project, which I think will be valuable for the subsequent milestones. So milestone 2 and milestone 3. Especially milestone 3 will be very infrastructure focused, right? Network is not a hermetic thing to focus on. So I think that's where the strength will play out the best. And as the LimeChain mentioned, their background, they have other like a portfolio. They have a lot of experience. When I was reviewing their proposal, I did think about the first milestone as more of a like a hermetic, well, like encapsulated, almost like borderline mathematical task, just like take the spec, write the spec in TypeScript. That was the idea. And so my recommendations to LimeChain about narrowing down the scope was around that, which not that I would think that LimeChain wouldn't be able to do it, is that I thought that wouldn't be the right way of using the talents of the LimeChain to ask them to, start digging into different storage types and like other things that I mentioned that I think should fall outside the scope of the milestone one. And so that scope, if we were to accept the limestone bid, I would ask them to also like narrow down the timeline, because I would ask them to narrow down the scope drastically too. However, like I think the milestone 1, if we think of it in a way that I think about the scope, that it just like really retrace this the solidity implementation of Aurora, or like the spec, add enough tests. I think it just might be too small of a scope and not the right project to focus for LimeChain on, because I think the milestone 2 and milestone 3 might actually be better projects to focus on. And this is like my recommendation there, that I recommended for LimeChain. Can you maybe start on the milestone 2? I mean, that will unfortunately require from you writing another like several paragraph explanation of like how would you approach milestone 2. But I think that actually is the right skill fit there. It's an infrastructure project. Also, milestone 2, you can think of it as an infrastructure project because the work there is about, like extracting the right, it's a lot of refactoring, just like how do you cut out the piece of Rust code from our repo in such a way that you can compile to WASM. Like how do you run it inside the different WASM virtual machine, which is in a browser, and so on. So it's a lot of just, like connecting tissue there, moving around, and less of the math spec in there. And so that's and that's transition to like Austin's proposal. I think it is on the conservative side in terms of the scope. It has mostly focused around the testing, which is like how I would prefer it to be. That it's really just around implementing the spec and adding whatever tests necessary. The way he described tests, I think, is the right way to approach it. So I think maybe there is some subject matter expertise showing, because I mean he's been building for the protocol. So the way he proposed to write tests is exactly how I think they should be written for the first milestone. I might be biased here because I implemented a lot of stuff for the Aurora bridge, actually probably most of this like business logic in there. So it might feel to me that why can't you do it faster kind of thing. So I would ask like Austin to think whether he can do it, in 4 to 5 weeks instead of like 6 weeks, the same scope, and, readjust the total cost appropriately without, while keeping the same hourly rate. Maybe with some reduction. It's a bit of a difficult call here with the hourly rate because it's definitely not like long-term engagement. So when it's a short-term engagement and you see it yourself as more like a short-term contractor, which is, by the way, legally, you're not like a short-term contractor of developer governance DAO, just to clarify things up. I mean, there is a markup happening, and the markup can be, it's a wide range, from 30 to like 80%. So it's really hard to argue when it comes to short-term projects, what is the right markup over the, let's say, full-time engineer comp that would have been hired in the company. So I just kind of like a little bit eyeballed there and suggested, like, can you do it in like, let's say 4 weeks or 31K? So that was my proposal to Austin. So the other thing I think why Austin might be a good fit for the milestone 1 is that he also works on like in zero knowledge area right now, is exploring it for NEAR. And as he said himself, he would try to make it future-proof with respect to the zero knowledge light client that we would introduce. So I think, making Austin focus not on the infra, but on the spec implementation and, integration with like things like zero knowledge light client spec is the right way to utilize the resources here. Adjusted for the smaller time frame, like 4 weeks and 31K. And I would, suggest to LimeChain to just, like go after a bigger infra kind of projects like milestone 2, milestone 3. As you said, milestone 4, I mean, there is a debate on like whether it's feasible, whether it's needed. But this is where we, as moderators, need to step in and kind of aggregate the reviews of the individual work groups, because, when validators come and say that there is no need for in-browser validator, it's the question is this actually something that we need? Or is this just like the way it is viewed right now by the current validators, right? So that's basically where we as like moderators of the DAO might be able to adjust basically the conclusions that the work groups made on the milestone 4. But we are far from the milestone 4 right now, and everyone agreed that there is a value in milestone 2 and milestone 3, or at least not everyone, but like some work groups. So I would suggest, the LimeChain to focus on milestone 2, right? Another like couple of paragraphs explain how they would do it, and Austin to focus on milestone 1, and Austin might even like in the free time, in whatever free time you choose to, even advise maybe LimeChain on how to go about milestone 2, because Austin is, I think, familiar with the code of the runtime, and he can tell you where to carve. It's just he might not do the carving, I think. So that's what I think about this whole thing.
Yeah, thanks for the thoughts.
Yeah, I actually want to second Max's thoughts. Thanks, Max, for laying out all the possible outcomes and how we can make the best out of what we have. One thing that I want us to just be aware of is from what I've seen and what I observe working on different projects out there, that we probably will need to account for like 2 timelines. One is billable, sort of how much time would it take to implement things, but at the same time we'll have probably some extended timeline for the expectations when things will be released, because of different review processes taking a bit longer to get into NEAR API.js, for example, and then to cut the release of NEAR API.js that will support this feature. So, and only at that time we can say, well, this feature is actually live and available to the users. And this is something that I just wanted to get us aware, and because there is also a big refactoring happening on NEAR API.js side, which will probably delay some of the things, but you should start working on the pull requested version of the changes, and that it shouldn't take, not get you blocked, at least in terms of like implementation, but might get blocked whoever will take the implementation parts from presenting it as a live feature. Yeah, that's all comments I actually have. Everything else is pretty much aligned with what Max said, and I had the same feeling of the teams and the strengths of both proposals. And as Max already said, like it's really hard to make the decision when we have 2 very strong proposals out there. Ori, do you want to add anything here?
Yeah, I think you all stated everything that I wanted to say. So yeah, I agree with all your statements, and I guess I would like to now invite both teams to maybe respond to the thoughts, and yeah, who wants to go first?
Yeah, we can go first. Something that I can start with is obviously this needs like a more thorough discussion within LimeChain to have some kind of a final decision on how we can proceed further with next steps. I believe that's feasible what you guys just suggested.
To summarize, right? The idea is that for Austin is going to take this statement verification part into NEAR API.js, while we can decide to focus on either one milestone or one deliverable with both the local execution and the peer-to-peer plugin game, or break them down and have more flavor or more meat to the bone on those specific kind of next steps. And those are going to be based on what Austin is going to deliver in terms of verification, right?
Well, I would say like I think like Austin's plan with testing is quite exhaustive for the light client itself. So I think the best usage of your time would be the milestone 2 and milestone 3, which is like you can focus on peer-to-peer network, allow NEAR API.js to not depend on the RPC providers, or you can the milestone 2 would actually be a pretty big deal, where we don't need to do the view calls on the node side, but instead inside the client. But as I outlined in one of my responses, I mean, that requires it's a difficult, right? So it's both infrastructure problem and also like an engineering task. The speculative fetching of the state, it's like, it's an engineering task. It's a pretty big one. So I would focus on that. Yeah, I wouldn't try to like augment the number 1. And I think I left somewhere in a comment about like different types of storages. I would address it when we start getting like the feedback from developers or the users that they need that. Like they say, all right, well, I don't like that I have only one option. I don't like that I cannot control what storage shall we use. And once we hear that, as a feedback, then we start implementing it. Like I wouldn't do it proactively. I would be more reactive here, because we first need to start seeing projects actually using it. Yeah, so that's what I would recommend you. Mm-hmm.
So we use memory for the beginning, or?
Well, I mean, Austin will use whichever. I mean, you can try to like communicate to him, like influence him. He can choose whatever whatever storage he uses for the NEAR API.js fetching of the headers. I mean, that might not be actually too large. I mean, 27 kilobytes per light header. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you need to make a call here together with Austin of like what the first storage type he would be using for the light client. But I mean, again, if you take his work, right, and you start using it for like a second milestone and the third milestone, and you feel like his choice is not sufficient or like suboptimal, and then you say, okay, we're blocked here. We need to have another type of the storage as an option. That's where you come in and start implementing it, and you say, well, we need to expand the storage options, and then you argue why. Yeah.
We'll definitely, as Ryder said, we'll have to take this in the team and actually roll it.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we take the final decision as soon as possible. So, but sounds like reasonable next steps and like reasonable suggestions from you, which we appreciate. And thanks for all the feedback that you've just given us, guidance and help so far. We do appreciate it.
Awesome. Austin, what about you?
Yeah, so from my end, just to, I guess, follow up on what Max said at the last, when he was talking about the proposals. As far as the work on kind of isolating the virtual machine and having it compile the WASM, yeah, this is definitely something I'm more than happy to help with. This is something I thought had a lot of value for things outside of just this as well. But I just never really had the bandwidth to be able to, go into the NEAR core code to change it to make it possible. So yeah, more than happy to help on that, or just like take suggestions about, either API design on this stuff or whatever else. And if there's any information you guys would like from me, just let me know, and I'm more than happy to help. I don't think I had comments or thoughts from the statement. I guess the only other thing was, yeah, on the timeline and stuff like that, I just put it like kind of like a little bit of a conservative estimate, also just to make sure that I was spending enough time to make sure that all these things were like very thoroughly tested and verified. But yeah, a shorter timeline, totally doable. I mean, there's nothing that's this stuff is just spending as much time as really as you guys want for testing. I don't really have an opinion on that.
Mm-hmm. And as Vlad said already, like keep in mind that it also includes productionization of that code, so including into the NEAR API.js, not just like developing it on the side, but actual putting it into the library.
Yeah.
But I mean, there
course.
are things that you can reuse. I mean, there's like a code for the Aurora bridge that was written that fetches the headers to actually do the thing that you want to do, to fetch the headers and run the verification on them as a light client. So you can, and it's actually in JavaScript, so you can just repurpose it as is. Yeah.
Okay. So it seems like there's general consensus from what I can hear from the discussion based on Max's recommendation. So just to summarize, that is, you know, Austin would proceed with milestone 1, would obviously send like the revised timeline, cost, you know, incorporate any suggestions, but then and then LimeChain would propose another bid for milestones 2 and 3 with a question mark on 4. I don't know what we decided for 4, but did I miss anything from the summary? Are we all, is there anything else?
I guess that's accurate. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, I guess do we want to do like a formal voting, Max and Vlad? Like, or
No, I mean,
we're good?
we just everyone is obviously on board, so let's
Perfect.
proceed.
Okay, cool. And by the way, like this is, you know, this is one of our first calls that we're having to kind of talk through a proposal on the gigs board. So we greatly appreciate everyone's flexibility and patience as we build this out. But yeah, very glad that we got to have a conversation and hear from everyone. And yeah, we're excited for everyone to contribute in some way. So yeah, I guess just in terms of next steps. So Austin, will you be able to post a follow-up just with like your kind of like updated sort of bid based on the feedback?
Yeah, sure. And I can just like ask someone after this call what kind of format you're looking for, because I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that. But yeah, I'm totally cool to do that.
Okay. And then obviously for LimeChain, you will be posting, I guess, a new post for milestones 2 and 3, right?
Yeah. Do we like need to make a new post? Can we post it within the current post? Like, what is the preferred way?
Whichever you like. I mean, if you edit the current post, just like mention somewhere like at the top that it was updated on the date and what has changed. Yeah, and you don't need to do both milestone 2 and 3. I think like milestone 2 is pretty massive on its own. I think that one will have the biggest impact. Because I've been working very closely with RPC team. I mean, we're serving like 15,000 RPC requests per second. It's a pretty massive traffic, and most of it view calls. And if we can offload it from the centralized service to the all this computation to be inside the browsers of the users who open the tabs, then that will be a pretty massive impact for our entire ecosystem. But it's also milestone 2 is pretty challenging. So I think milestone 2 is like enough of the stuff to focus on in the near future. But of course, if you have like huge appetite for milestone 3, I mean, feel free to describe it too. I just don't think it needs to be focused on now.
Okay, cool. Sounds cool.
Perfect. All right. Are there any questions or feedback from anyone? Okay. Happy to give everyone 20 minutes back then. Thank you all so much, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.